Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everybody, and welcome to today's Adjust webinar in partnership with Criteo, the best mobile retargeting strategies for the future. My name is Kevin, and I'm part of the marketing team here at Adjust. And first off, I'd like to introduce our two presenters of the day. We're welcoming Lucy Rogers. Lucy is the Director of Global Mobile Partnerships at Criteo. Thank you so much for being with us today. And alongside Lucy, we're also welcoming Katie Hutcherson. Katie is the Director of Product at Adjust. Again, thank you both for being here. So on the next slide, right before we start, we're quickly going to go over some quick housekeeping rules. So the webinar is scheduled to last about 30 minutes. For those of you new to GoToWebinar, you should see a panel on either side of your screen. You can use this panel to ask any question you might have throughout the presentation, and our speakers will address them at the end of the session. Finally, the recording of the presentation alongside the slides will be shared with all of you via email after the webinar. So on the next slide, let's take a look at the agenda. We will briefly introduce the two companies for you guys to know where we both stand in the mobile ecosystem. We'll then dive into the purpose of re-engagement retargeting strategies before moving on to explaining what deep linking is and why you should consider it. And after that, we'll take a look at the KPIs that matter before sharing a real-life example with you guys. And at the end of the presentation, hopefully we'll have some time for a Q&A session. All right, so without further ado, let's kick off the presentation. Right before I hand over the control to our co-presenters, we can maybe start off by defining some key terms that our attendees are going to hear a lot today. So Lucy, could you define the difference, maybe the main differences between retargeting and re-engagement, and I'll let you guys respond to that while I hand you over the slides.
Great, thanks Kevin, I'm excited to be here. And yes, as you mentioned, we're going to be talking about both re-engagement and retargeting today, and so I think it's important that at the beginning we're upfront about these two definitions and how they differ. So when we talk about re-engagement, we're really talking about finding dormant users and bringing them back into the application. So users that have been inactive for a certain amount of time and having them re-engage within the app. And then for retargeting, this is more of a sales channel. So it's basically any type of advertising that drives sales, orders, registrations, conversions, whatever type of action that might be within the application. So to take it over and to give you an overview about Criteo, for those of you who don't know Criteo, we are a global performance marketing platform, and we help our clients drive sales across all channels. So that includes mobile, social, web, and search. We work with over 12,000 advertisers, and we're global in the sense that we have offices in over 30 countries. And last year alone, we tracked over $1 billion in transactions. So it's safe to say that a majority of our clients are using us to deliver performance at scale around the world. Criteo was founded back in 2005, and we got into the app business in 2013 through an acquisition that we made. And the business has quickly become one of the most important channels for the company. And the app business is definitely one of the fastest growing channels as well for us.
Hey guys, so I'll just take over. Katie speaking here. Give you a little overview of Adjust. Adjust is a mobile measurement partner that focuses on attribution. We were founded in 2012 by Christian Henschel, Paul Mueller, and Manuel Neat. What began as a small mobile attribution company with 3 employees based in Berlin has now grown to 14 offices with around 150 employees globally. Recently launching full support for the domestic Chinese market, we have around 22,000 integrated SDKs worldwide.
So when we talk about the mobile channel, it's important to remember that the mobile channel includes both mobile web and app advertising. And so what you see on the screen here is a study that we did here at Criteo last year, and it basically shows the difference in user behavior between web and app. And as you can see, there are some significant differences. So within the applications, the users tend to browse more products overall. They're adding more products to their shopping cart, and then ultimately they're converting at 3 times that of the mobile web users. So, it's clear to see that app marketing has a very strong revenue line, and that marketers really need to recognize this, and they need to be investing in an app strategy when it comes to advertising. And historically, when you think about app advertising, in the past 3 to 5 years ago, it was really all about driving, the most downloads as quickly as possible at the cheapest rate. However, more recently, it's important to recognize that you need to have a re-engagement strategy involved as well. So this is the study that was done by eMarketer, and it shows that basically 7 days or 1 week after an install, only 11% of the users are actually still active within the app. And so that is a huge, huge turnover and churn rate. And so again, marketers need to really make sure that they have a strategy in place that helps to engage the users directly after download. One of the things that's also important to remember here is that the app retention campaigns, they need to be run simultaneously with the UA campaigns. So we can't have, marketer can't say 1 month we're going to use our app budget for UA and then the following month will be for re-engagement, because at that point we will have already lost the users. So it's important that these two go in conjunction with one another so that we're immediately engaging the users and showing value of the app. And then when we talk about re-engagement and the types of strategy that's needed, what needs to happen is basically the marketers need to be able to identify the high-value users, the ones that are likely to re-engage, and find them wherever they are, no matter the channel or the publisher or application. And then more importantly, it's all about delivering the right message, and that comes down to the actual ads that are in place. And so the ads need to be dynamic, they need to be optimized in real time and specific and personalized to the user. And then ultimately, once the user clicks the app, they need to have a seamless mobile experience, so they need to be deep linked directly into the application. And we'll get into a little bit more about deep linking later on.
And so for all of these reasons, this is why for 2017, Adjust has decided to focus heavily on re-engagement. Conducting a controlled test, we found that users who were re-engaged remained active in the associated app 3 times longer than those users who were not re-engaged. With the 2080 rule obviously manifesting itself in mobile, we want to make sure to provide our clients with the means to not only measure these different users, but to engage with them, sending the right message at the right time. So what's reattribution? At Adjust, a device can technically only install once. However, a user can lapse over time and need to be re-engaged in order to heighten their in-app activity. This is what Adjust defines as a reattribution. It's an existing user who has actively interacted with a new ad and then reopened your app. What's key to note here is that a user can be reattributed multiple times, as they may in fact re-engage with different targeted ads multiple times. At Adjust, we believe it is critical to watch these users and their in-app activity specifically, splitting them out as a separate cohort. Viewing these reattributed users allows you to see the direct effects of your remarketing campaigns. For example, did users that were re-engaged from my 15% off coupon actually make a purchase? And was it the day of re-engagement or was it a week after? Overall, was their retention higher? Finally, I've heard from so many clients, well, we're not e-commerce, so we don't really see the benefits of running re-engagement. This is plain and simply just wrong. While yes, e-commerce does lend itself easily, we've also seen tons of very promising campaigns from gaming as well as casino-based apps. Once you've actually set up your re-engagement or retargeting campaigns, you can breathe easy by watching these specific performance and Adjust. On my left, you can see that you can select to only look at your reattributed users, and on my right, you can select a multitude of different KPIs to watch what these users do over time. With Adjust, we have no look-back limit for monthly grouped cohorts. Another important piece to touch upon is that you may want to re-engage users who have perhaps lapsed in the past 60 days while simultaneously running a retargeting campaign against your most active users, offering them a promotion. In Adjust, you can customize your user's inactive window down to the ad group level, which is the third level in our system. This means that anytime you want to run re-engagement campaigns with very different campaign goals alongside retargeting, we are able to track and measure both without compromising your campaigns or your user experience. Here you can see a view of an app's cohort data in Adjust. Specifically, we can see that of all users who were reattributed to this app in the past 30 days, 2,000 of these users converted and triggered a purchase event on their day of reattribution. This totaled almost $400,000 in revenue from these purchases that all happen within 24 hours of engaging with this Criteo retargeted ad. Overall, within Adjust Cohorts, there are tons of different ways to slice and dice your data, narrowing it down to the most granular level for viewing specific retargeting campaigns.
Great, thanks, Katie. So we've done a lot of talking about re-engagement, so we're going to get into a little bit more about retargeting specifically. So let's walk through an example here. On the left-hand side, the first panel, you have a guy who has downloaded an app and he's opened it and he's maybe even browsed a few products and perhaps added a coat to his cart. And then he leaves it and he abandons the cart. And a few days later, we're able to find that particular user within a different application and show him an ad with that particular product or coat that he had added to his cart that he actually never purchased. So he's reminded of this and he clicks on it and he is deep linked directly into the app to that particular product or to the cart where he was, and he's literally one click away from purchase. So this is important. When looking at this, it's important to remember two things. This is clearly not re-engagement. It's retargeting for two reasons. First of all, we're driving the user directly to purchase rather than just driving them into the app or taking them to a particular product or page and pushing them down the funnel. And then second, the advertiser is targeting an active user in this case rather than a dormant user. So this person has been active within the past few days and we're showing him an ad almost immediately. So again, it is retargeting rather than re-engagement. So as we were talking about, deep linking has come up a couple different times here, so I think it's important that we define it. So deep linking is really most relevant when we're talking about retargeting because it allows users to, it allows marketers to bring users to specific content within the app. And so in this case here, users within a weather app and they see a banner ad for a particular travel site, and then they click on it and they're taken to that exact trip or that was advertised in the banner. And so also there's something what's called deferred deep linking, and so this takes it a little bit further in the sense that if a user does not have an app downloaded on their phone, then they're taken, when they click on the banner ad, they're actually taken to the Apple or Google store to download the app. And then once the app is downloaded and they go to open it, they're taken to the particular content page rather than having to navigate through the application to find the particular product or trip or whatever they were looking for. So again, it's a really seamless user experience. And so as marketers, you might be wondering, why is it important? Well, as we were just saying, it's a seamless user experience, but it also significantly increases the conversion rate because it saves the user time to take them directly to the product. And then secondly, it gives the user the most integrated mobile experience. Even if the app isn't installed, they are taken to the App Store and then downloading the app and taken to the content right there. Also, another question that often comes up when we talk about deep linking is, how do marketers set up a deep link? So there's a couple of different ways that you can do this, one of which is through the developer guides that are provided from Apple and Google. You can have access to those and have your development team implement them directly within your application. Or a simpler solution can be through your mobile measurement partners such as Adjust. So in this case, I'll have Katie take you through some of the technicalities of deep linking with Adjust.
Perfect. So how does Adjust support deep links? Deep links have changed quite a bit, especially on Apple over time. However, the concept is the same. Allow users who already have your app installed to bypass the App Store and go directly into your app, showing specific content or features. In short, deep linking brings a seamless user experience and can increase your conversion rate and retention rate significantly. This is why we are always updating our system to make sure we fully support the latest deep linking technology. While it sounds like a no-brainer, unfortunately, the land of deep linking has grown quite complex. On Android, you need to prepare yourself for fragmented browsers, ranging from the latest Chrome to Firefox, versus on iOS, you need to know whether your audience remains on iOS 8 and below. As many of you are unfortunately aware, the dawn of iOS 9 brought about universal linking. While it maintains the integrity of a deep link, it functions very differently, only working in Chrome and Safari. To my right, you can see an example of a client setting up their universal link in the Adjust dashboard. Overall, we don't want to get too heavily into deep linking. As I mentioned, it's pretty complex, but the whole idea is that deep linking really can help your re-engagement and your retargeting campaigns performance.
Great, so we're going to get into some KPIs for retargeting and re-engagement. And obviously, measuring app retargeting and re-engagement KPIs is crucial for any marketer. And so we sort of have to break them out into different KPIs depending on the type of strategy. So for retargeting KPIs, most commonly what's used is cost per order, cost per sale, whatever that actually might be. And basically, marketers need to be measuring, how much did a user spend when they came back into the app. And they also need to be looking at other things too, like did the user buy just one particular product or did they buy multiple products? And what was the overall cart or basket value? Once you have this information, over time you're able to bucket these users into high value versus low value users, knowing how much they spent and how many different products they bought after they came back into the application. And then also along the same lines, ROAS, or return on ad spend, is another very clear KPI for retargeting. And so basically, this is what are your margins as a marketer? How much are you spending versus how much you're profiting? So again, these are very revenue related, so they fall under the retargeting KPI, whereas re-engagement is less focused on money and it's more focused on the lifetime value of the user. So basically, how much is the customer worth and how much should a marketer be paying to bring that user back into the application. So when measuring LTV, marketers really need to look at, what is the average revenue per user and then the churn rate, or how often they're losing a user over the same period of time, and evaluating that. And again, same sort of thing, over time you'll be able to bucket users into high value LTV users versus some that are not, and being able to continue your strategy moving forward. So we're going to move on to a case study and sort of bring this to life. We've talked a lot about theoretical things, but I wanted to take you through an actual example of a campaign that we ran here at Criteo with a company called Deezer, and Deezer is a web-based music streaming service, for those of you who've never heard of it. It's actually quite huge. They're in over 180 countries. And what happened is they came to us and they had invested pretty significantly in driving downloads and having users utilize their premium service, but they really wanted a way to engage and convert users from the free service to the premium service. And so at Criteo, we basically enabled them to run an app advertising campaign where they targeted two different key segments. They targeted the dormant users and then the active users. And they were targeted with the same ad, which is a 30-day free trial of the premium service. And as you can see here from the numbers on the slide, the results were very, very good. We saw over 100% increase in conversion rate for the in-app versus the desktop campaign. And then we also saw an increase of over 203% for the click-through rate. But most importantly, 96% of the incremental subscriptions resulted from the app advertising campaign. So again, very, very high results there. And the reason that I bring up this particular case study is because I think it's important to note that they looked at two particular segments, dormant versus active users. And that's something that Katie is going to talk about now, is the Adjust Audience Builder and how you're able to segment out different types of users. And that's exactly what Deezer did in this case. So I'll hand it over to Katie.
Yeah, so as I mentioned a bit before, one of Adjust's primary focus for 2017 was focusing on re-engagement. And from this came our feature called the Audience Builder, which we're super excited about, launched about June 15th, and now is available for all of our different clients. Okay, so getting into a bit of what the Audience Builder is. Adjust Audience Builder allows you to create precise user segments from your Adjust dashboard based on all of your various apps, users, events, countries, device, OS, basically the list goes on. Now, why is this feature unique? Well, it allows you to create incredibly granular audiences based on your historical data. So if, for example, you wanted to begin running retargeting campaigns with a partner like Criteo, you could immediately pull the audience you wish to target from Adjust, get a list of their advertising IDs, and share this with your partner. As some of you may know, to run effective retargeting campaigns, very specific historical data is required to optimize, and it's not always the easiest to pull or ask your database team for this data. With the Audience Builder, you can pull this data in a matter of seconds and share it with your partner to begin running campaigns immediately, while still targeting the exact users that you want to convert. So what are some of the key features of the Audience Builder tool? For starters, we have an unlimited look-back window. So this obviously comes in pretty handy when pulling users who installed over a year ago and still wanting to see what their in-app activity looks like today. Next, you're not limited to one app, so you can easily identify users that would be great for cross-promotion against a suite of your apps. You can also download advertising IDs or push tokens for push notification lists directly to your browser within a matter of seconds. These lists are updated in real time based on whether users meet or do not meet the set audience's conditions. So let's say, for example, that you've made an audience of all users who installed in January, have logged in but never made a purchase. This audience will be updated in real time. So the moment that a user actually triggers a purchase, they'll no longer have their advertising ID included in this list, letting the partner know that they're necessary for targeting. So we're actually looking at a view of the Audience Builder in the Adjust dashboard here. And here you can see an audience set up for big spenders. You can obviously name your audiences however you choose. But here you can see an example of some of the various conditions that our clients are able to set. So in this example, we have all users from China who installed more than 12 hours ago and have spent more than 30 euros. You can obviously keep adding on many more conditions here to make this an even more granular audience. In this window, you can actually see something else that's pretty cool about the Audience Builder, and we call this groups. So what does this functionality do? Basically, this allows clients to choose up to 10 different groups in which they can make certain groups control groups, use it for A/B testing, or split these groups to ensure that no two networks are targeting the same user, ergo competing against one another. Each group receives its own dynamic link with its own set of unique users from this audience. You can also, once again, name these groups whatever you choose. Once again, these are also updated in real time. Overall, the Audience Builder is a perfect tool for retargeting. Whether you've been running reattribution campaigns for a while or are just beginning, the feature allows you to quickly target exactly who you want to convert and use partners like Criteo to reach them with the right message at the right time. So hopefully that gave everyone a little bit of insight into the Audience Builder tool. We also hope that everyone learned a bit, not only about why re-engagement is a critical part of your advertising spend, but also how Criteo and Adjust are making re-engagement easier. With that said, we'll now open it up for any questions that you may have.
Okay, so it looks like we've gotten quite a few questions here, so I will kick it off with the first one that came through, which is which verticals work best for retargeting versus re-engagement? So I guess I'll take that one. So to answer that one, basically all verticals can essentially do both, but from what we've seen, for example, there's some common traits for particular verticals that work better for retargeting versus re-engagement. So I would say anything that has to do with transaction-based, so shopping, travel, food delivery, subscriptions, those would all work best for retargeting because, again, you're driving the users back in to make some sort of revenue action, whereas re-engagement would work best for gaming. And the reason for that is obviously, there's not a whole lot of transaction focus for the gaming campaigns, and it's more about just bringing users in to be re-engaged, to be playing, and to taking on to the next level or whatever that might be. So it's less transaction focused, which means a re-engagement strategy would be better for that particular vertical.
Cool, and so we just received another question here, and it's around how does Adjust work when, let's say that a user is uninstalled and you want to re-engage them. So the way that Adjust kind of handles uninstalls is we will send silent push notifications to the app. Basically, it means there's no, basically the user has no idea that these push notifications are happening, so there's no bad user experience from this, and it allows us to detect whether the app is actually still on the device. So within Adjust, you'll be able to measure the number of uninstalls that you have for a certain campaign, and then use partners like Criteo to go out and target these users directly to re-engage them and get them to reinstall your app. So uninstall is actually a separate KPI, and it's also going to be included as a part of our audience builder tool so that you can set the condition, I want to see all uninstalled users from perhaps the month of May, and then go out and target them directly.
Great. Okay, we had another question that actually looks like this one I'll take on too. It relates to retargeting versus re-engagement campaigns. So in this case, the question is, what ad formats work best for retargeting versus re-engagements? So again, for retargeting, the ad formats that I would recommend would be more of the personalized dynamic ads that are basically driving the user into the app to make a certain purchase or order. And in this case, you could even have product feeds if it allows where the actual product shows up. So that's ad format that I would recommend for retargeting. Whereas for re-engagement, again, the main focus and goal is really just getting the user back into the app and engaging. So I would say static formats there, just to get the user to click and bring them back in. Yeah, for that one.
And so another question that we just received, why is deep linking complicated by browser fragmentation? Isn't deep linking only taking a user from an app to your own app? So I'm gonna split this question into two parts. First, deep linking isn't necessarily app to app. You could easily want to deep link a user via an email campaign, in which case that's definitely not an app, right? That could be via web. So there's always going to be the case in which you may want to re-engage or retarget a user from web-based inventory into your app. Secondly, we can kind of cover off on universal linking here, but basically this was with iOS 9 where Apple came out and said, okay, we want to make deep linking more of a universal functionality, meaning that if users don't have the app installed, there would be an associated or similarly relevant content that that company would have on their website. So kind of giving clients a way to hedge their bets almost, so that if a user doesn't have the app, they could fall back to the website content that's the same. While it's a great concept in theory, there are a lot of ways in which universal linking can actually break. And that's because Apple doesn't allow any redirects that occur outside of Safari. In terms of tracking links, in the way in which we used to work with deep links, the tracking link would get redirected through to the Adjust server, in which case we would then send the user either to the app or to the app store. That redirect happens before the user goes to Safari, which is part of iOS 9 and what Apple doesn't allow. Because of that, that's where we came up with our own internal universal linking solution that completely mitigates that redirect and allows us to still track these users, but in a much different way than how we used to. That's kind of just the surface of it. Don't want to get too into it, but definitely if you want to share your email, we've written up tons of different blog articles and pieces around the complexity of deep linking, because it also is pretty complex within Android as well.
Great, and then let's see if there's any more questions here. So one other question, the last question that just came in is, who owns the actual advertising inventory within the app? Is it Criteo or is it Adjust? So the way that it works is, Criteo has relationships with all of the major exchanges as well as the app and publishers direct. So we have those relationships to be serving the ads within those applications. Adjust is more of just the measurement partner in this case. So that's where that relationship, that's how that relationship works. So technically, Criteo has those relationships with the exchanges and partners to deliver that inventory.
Right. Adjust just acts as the third party that's then able to track how well the different ads are performing.
All right. Thank you once again very much to our co-presenters of the day. Thank you very much to all of you who attended, and we definitely hope to see you next time.